Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Okay, welcome to the Tuesday Forum. Sarah Stevenson Tuesday morning breakfast forum. My name is Mary Johnson, but everybody knows me, I think, by now. Okay, so thank you for being here today. We are having an open forum. Okay, so our candidates are busy. We had a mix up on the dates. So we're going to have an open forum today for you to talk about the things that you think are important in your life and the life of the city. And we're going to start with the prayer. Jackie, will you give us a prayer? I sure will.
Father, thank you so much for your being here, and thank you for Sarah Stevenson Tuesday Forum. Even today, as we approach the first date of Mrs. Stevenson on October 26th, that you just bless us even more so. We ask that proceedings today, as we discuss how we move forward, will go well. We bless you in your name, and in the name of the Son.
Amen. Okay, in open forum, what we do is we're going to, if you have something that you would like to say, we're going to let you say it, and then, or a topic that you would like discussed, and then we'll let people ask questions that way. Okay. I'm not setting a time because we're going to see how it goes, and then if it goes and goes and goes, then we may have to set a time limit on it. But if you're going to ask the question of the person that presents it, I will ask you to keep your question to 30 seconds. Okay, so Winston. I'm seeing you about the hand raised. I'm gonna be like a teacher. I'm gonna call on somebody. Okay, I'll let
Okay.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
I'm just concerned and want us to talk openly with suggestions and recommendations on how we can gather more people, get more people to come to the Tuesday Forum. And we know it's always a joint time, but we particularly want to keep it going. Us, Ms. Stevens. So we know that every election period, we have the elected officials that we usually invite, and they usually come, and they bring their posse with them, from time to time. And it's dying down right now. So we need to have recommendations and suggestions on bringing people here that will draw people to the Tuesday Forum, because we decided that we were not going to do virtual anymore. We'd rather for people to be here. And we also know that people were very comfortable, with the Zoom, the meetings that we had, not just our organizations, but a lot of organizations. And it's still kind of hard to get people out at 8:30 in the morning. So I'd like to focus on what we can do to possibly bring more people to present and more people to attend the Tuesday Forum. And the faithful few that we had, we appreciate you. We want you to keep coming back because we are the faithful few. The ones that are here this morning, we've been doing it forever, and it's only been us. And we'd like to get more of us to come, in addition to drawing, giving us recommendations and suggestions on who we need to have to come before the forum. And if we had the mayor here, because so many people want to tell the mayor off, or the sheriff here, and they want to tell the sheriff off, or the district attorney, they want to tell, when they come, that we would draw that, we would draw the audience of people who wants to come and talk to them, let them know how they feel, which we appreciate that too. And we want to make sure that we are doing something, continue to do what we've been able to do for the community. And that's to educate our community about different things that are going on. Charlotte is growing very fast, and we need to attract folks. And that's what I'd like for us to consider. And the group of us that normally get together, we have talked about it, and we'd like to talk about it a little bit more. So if you have any recommendations and suggestions, we welcome them. That's all I want to say.
Well, thank you, Mr. McClellan. That I know that is at the top of our priority list as facilitators. However, again, all suggestions and ideas are welcome. If you have or represent organizations, every community engagement department suggests they be here. This is, again, one of the foremost avenues to receive very nuanced and very specific global information. So this is, again, a great place to be to really get close to community. With that said, I would like to take advantage of this open forum to somewhat develop a think tank. And as I say that, Mr. King was walking to the door, a great man indeed. Mr. Pfeiffer, I remember last week you saying you lived in Columbus, Ohio, right? And I would love to hear your perspective as someone who was involved in another major city around the same size and different makeup than Charlotte. What are some of the things that you see between the two municipalities that we utilize here in Charlotte, or just the way structures are set up? What do you think we're missing?
Well, thank you. As I said, my name is Rick Pfeiffer. I grew up in Columbus. I was born in Fort Jackson, South Carolina, because of the wars going on. So my wife's from Boston. I met her in the Army, raised her family, professional life in Columbus, Ohio. Columbus is a capital city. It's probably known more for Ohio State football, perhaps, than anything else. But the size of the city is the same as Charlotte has been. The metropolitan area is about the same. Although coming down here, I see that Charlotte is growing, and I think your light rail going south was an economic development that helped quite a bit. It seems to be a lot of young folks. In Columbus, Ohio, it's really an older city. In other words, it's been larger for a longer time than Charlotte's becoming larger. I think Charlotte's trying to find its identity. Columbus, Ohio is our former, as I raised last year, Jackie called me on the day. We elect the mayor. The mayor runs the city. The city council is elected. They have their own staff, so they're each their own power centers. Basically, I think the people in Columbus are really no different than the people in Charlotte.
When you say run the city?
Well, for instance, here, it's a city manager form of government. So you hire a city manager, you pay him $500,000 a year to run the government. City council's there. I've often referred to it and been criticized by saying it's really a weak form of legislative government. That is, they don't have their own staff. They depend upon information coming to them from the city manager's staff. So they rely on that. But in Columbus, Ohio, you elect the mayor. That mayor runs the city of Columbus, hires the staff, is responsible to the city council, of course, passes the legislation, passes the budget. But I think the people in cities are all the same. We basically are concerned about two things in life. That's my opinions, of course. You're concerned about your family and your job. Where do I live? Do I feel safe? Do I have a job to support my family? And unless something directly impacts you, you're probably not interested in it. In terms of even politics, most people, I find, don't know the names of their local elected officials. But who is closest to people in delivering a service that's important to people? Well, the school boards, for instance. Now, the school district here is different than in Columbus, Ohio. The school district in Columbus is elected. It has its own taxing authority. The school district here depends upon the legislature and the county for its funding. So they can present a budget, but they're at, I don't say mercy, perhaps that's the correct word. They have to count on the county and this, in General 7 to give them the money to run the school district. Not so up there, but I think most of us are the same. Now, for me, I was always in politics and government. So when I first got here in January 2018, I went to about every public meeting I could find to find out what's going on. I came here the first time because Tracy Hewitt was running for judge at the time. She told me about Tuesday morning breakfast forum, so I showed up. And I said, well, it's a pretty good forum. I can get some information here. So I started coming back. Now, in the summertime, my wife and I would go to Massachusetts, so I'm not here. But every time I'm here on Tuesday morning, I'm going to come here because I find that and I've told Steve this over there, I have gotten some of the most useful insights into how I think city folks think here. And I can only get that by coming around and immersing myself, listening to other people, just trying to get a feel of what's going on. But I think the city of Columbus and the city of Charlotte have the same kind of people interested in jobs, families.
So what have you found to be more effective? I guess, don't take this word the wrong way, with a mayoral almost dictatorship versus, that's a tough word, but I wanted to paint a picture versus a council that, and also with North Carolina being the building rules state and the restrictions on city government via the state. How is the Ohio state government, how does it affect how Columbus operates?
Ohio has local. We have local
Pitch your mic, Mr. White.
We have local.
Bring it a little closer.
Is that all right? Steve, how are we doing?
I don't think it's working.
1, 2, 3.
I think if Charlotte, and I know that they've had these discussions, if you could elect your council members to at least a 4-year term, so they don't have to run every 2 years, you could stagger them. I also believe that they should be paid more because the citizens demand more of them. I mean, if a citizen actually looked at a council member and understood that council member's day, they'd say, well, this council member's not getting enough paid to do full-time council work, although we expect him to do full-time council work. So I think if you have 4-year terms, you stagger them, you have the at-large run one set of 2 years, council districts run the other 2, and I really think they need their own staff. In other words, that assists the council member in understanding the issues independent of what the city managers people want. I mean, we all have a bias thing. So, the city manager staff has a particular view. They probably hashed it out and come with a recommendation. And they give that recommendation to council. Well, if council hasn't done its own study and doesn't have its own information, how does it know to ask the right questions to see if what's being recommended to them makes sense? So I believe that a more empowered legislative body would help the decision-making process and getting information out there. That's what I think.
Ms. Phillips, you wanted to respond to that? I didn't get on the mic. Screaming.
I want to put it into historic perspective. And I'll start with states' rights. North Carolina is one of the Confederate states where the states' rights issue is still cock of the walk today. Ohio, being north of the Mason-Dixon line, had a different view about states' rights and gave local governments more power to do things than you will find local governments here because they wanted the state to basically dictate what's going on all across its territory. As far as the city council is concerned, we have a weak mayor system of government here versus you obviously have a strong mayor. That is one consideration that comes up about every 20 years. It's about a 20-year cycle where Charlotte-Mecklenburg goes to this big discussion and debate about how do we want to run our government. The other issue beyond the weak mayor, strong mayor, and paying the council and all that stuff is that of consolidation. That is wherein the city and the county collectively come together and form one system of government that controls the city and county. That will come up. It's overdue for debate about that. But as we have grown, Charlotte has really, in my estimation and view, become more in need of a consolidated government and a strong mayor position because of just what you cited about the need for people to work full time, and yet we're not giving them full time pay. Plus the fact every 2 years, you can't, in my view, and from the experience and the results that I have seen, every 2 years be running a campaign, because you're not really running a campaign every 2 years, every year. You have about 1 year to sit on council and try to do something that you're probably ill-equipped about doing in the first place, and you're basically going along with, I call it a popularity contest. And once we get past that view and get into holding people accountable, then we would probably come to a better situation than what we have here. And the other thing, as far as our schools and so forth concerned, the school board can sit there all day long and talk about what it needs and go to the county commission and to piggyback on something you said a whole week ago. They can say what we need, make all of the cases for needing it, but they have absolutely no authority for taxation to bring about revenue to make that happen. And when they go to the bodies that do have that kind of authorization, those bodies are reluctant to do it because they don't want to be strapped with the moniker of tax raiser. You know, the Democrats versus the Republicans. The Republicans say we hold the tax, we don't raise the taxes. The Democrats want to raise the taxes. And we do have some very impotent people in elective offices who won't bite the bullet. So therefore, when school systems say we need this, we want this, you know, and they go to a county commission, like the school bonds, for instance. He made a statement about how your taxes are not going to go up. That ain't exactly true, because the school board has absolutely no say in whether the taxes will go up or not. And not to mention, down the road, 10 years down the road, when some of this stuff actually comes into fruition, a lot of things can change and will change in those 10 years, but yet you will have voted for something on the premise that it's not going to raise my taxes. When the things you need, the people who control it.
I love you. Do I get to respond to that?
So, for those who just have entered the room, we're having kind of an open forum think tank. It's a very liberal discussion, and in a sense, we're not going to have the same time constraints and rules that we typically have on Tuesday morning. So please.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Dennis Carey with CMS. So I don't think I've ever said the taxes won't go up. What we've been told from the county was if the projects cost all $2.5 billion that they have estimated will cost, and if the county sells 100% of the bonds, so it pays for everything exclusively from bonds, not from PAYGO, not from other things that they have the opportunity to pay for, then there would be 1 penny per $100 property tax valuation increases. So one in 2025, one in 2028, and one in 2029. So a penny each time. So if your house is worth $200,000, you would see a $20 increase in your annual taxes on your property in 2025, another 20. So you get $40 in 2028 and another 20 in 2029. So you get $60 at the end of that for the cost of the $2.5 billion worth of bonds. So you'd be looking in 2029 at a $60 increase in your taxes for a $2.5 billion investment in our schools. So, and again, those are if-then statements. So if it only costs us $2.3 billion, then it might be 2.3 pennies. I don't know. But they've modeled sort of the worst case scenario both on the expenditure and on the tax rate. So just to be clear, we're aware, we've been told that there will be a tax increase tied to these bonds. The final amount shouldn't exceed those 3 pennies per $100 of valuation.
Nice. So, Ms. Mary has a question, and we want to stay. Matter of fact, let's utilize a bit of this time to have a discussion on bonds, because I know with this upcoming, Tuesday, a lot of people aren't clear. They know what's in the bonds, but they don't know exactly what that could mean. So let's have a discussion about bonds. Ms. Johnson?
Yeah, my question was about bonds also, and just so happy that you're here today. Put you on the hot seat, okay? My question, I guess it's not really about the bonds that are initially, but the schools that were described that were in disarray, like Berry Hill and some of those schools. My question, why have they not been repaired or replaced before now? I mean, why are they in this bond as opposed to, we've passed bonds for years and they've been in terrible shape. So why now? That's one question. Why now? And the second, well, go ahead and answer that because I forgot the second.
Well,
do I have a right to come back? Okay.
yeah, no, so sadly, we've replaced other schools that were in worse conditions. I mean, yes, Berry Hill is the last school that's on, not to be connected to city water or sewer, and there's no way that that's ever going to happen. We've been told that they can't get water and sewer to that spot, so that's what's made it necessary to leave that site. But over time, since 2007, where we've been replacing schools, we've actually been replacing schools that are in worse shape. So a lot of people don't recognize, when they say we're the 17th largest school district in the United States, that's out of 13,000 school districts. So there are a lot of school districts in the United States for us to be the 17th largest. Just to give you a little bit of context, if you turn all of our schools into Bank of America towers, there would be 20 more Bank of America towers downtown. So that's how much we have relative to building square footage. It's 23.5 million square feet of buildings. And so there's obviously a lot that goes into operating and maintaining those. There's a lot that goes into the use of them. I mean, if you've got 2,000 kids flushing a toilet every day, it doesn't take too long to figure out that you've got to replace the flush valve on that toilet sooner than if 2 people are flushing that toilet, right? So all of those things go into the degradation of the facility, the wear and tear over time. So not only are we, facing condition issues, but the capacity and being over capacity because we haven't had the schools that we've needed and the space for the students further accelerates the deterioration and aging of those facilities just because they're being used harder than they would be if we were able to manage our growth by having enough schools to seat everybody. So it's two things that get us into the situation, but we have always addressed our most egregious situations first.
So let me, on that subject, let me ask you a question. I'm deeply into history. I was just hurt when I found out that they were going to demolish the old West Charlotte campus to build a new one. While I understand the needs of what you just expressed, that was the last black school before, of course, desegregation. And those buildings, the reverence of those buildings, I thought, they mattered. The only recognizable building I know from the entire state of Arkansas is Central High School. That's what, again, so the idea of losing the history associated with that building, how do you maintain the integrity of the historical context? And that's a great overall question for Charlotte. For example, I went to Myers Park, right? I know there is the building will be on the ground, falling. I know that campus will never be compromised. Myers Park Traditional, Eastover, there's certain schools that that they will never be demolished for a new school. So that's what,
So factually not correct. We actually have a plan to convert Myers Park to a single building campus over time. So we have
that quad.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So we have plans to get all of our high schools to behave like a single building campus. So there may be a quad, but it will be ringed by buildings and walls so that there isn't a way for folks to get in and out and across the campus. I mean, yesterday I was at Garinger, and at 10 o'clock in the morning while school's going on, we watched a gentleman ride his bike right through the middle of campus, right? I mean, we can't operate schools like that anymore. It's 2023. So I don't think, you know, some of the connections that are made are actually fair. And relative to the history of the buildings, well, the original West Charlotte is Northwest School of the Arts. And we're actually doing a project right now to renovate the front building so that it will be more in character with the way that it was. We're building a new admin space as part of the 2023 bond, so we can get the offices that we need for the students, the way that we serve students today, without having to do something that compromises that original building. The Harding High School that was desegregated by Dorothy Counts is Irwin. It's still there. So we honor and respect the history where we can. But, you know, the second iteration of West Charlotte, we were at a place where you can't do the things that you need to do for students today. So in order to have the technology infrastructure that we need in order to offer the classes that we want to offer to our students, you also have to have the electrical infrastructure to support those things. And it becomes a place where you cannot make those changes to a building that was built in 1950 anymore. You just can't do anything else. If you go to North Mac right now, the hallways, you will see every bit of conduit for the power, for the IT is just running in chases right down the main hallways because there's no ceiling, there's no place above the ceiling to run those things. And so we have to replace North Mac. We can't do anything else with it. So there's a tension between preserving what we can and preserving the artifacts and the pieces. Like we recreated the mural at West Charlotte. We made sure that we worked with the Alumni Association to relocate the trophies and have everything that recalled, you know, the past and the legacy of West Charlotte. We built the cafeteria with the upper level and all those things to try and mimic some of the things that were important to the students and families in the community there. But you also have to recognize that at a certain point, you can't make this thing do what it needs to do for kids anymore. So that's the tension, and that's the fine line that we walk. And it's like Wilmore, right? That's, you know, a historical building over on West Boulevard. We're not funded to maintain the schools that have kids in them. So I said we got 23.5 million square feet of buildings. The county gives us $18 million a year for maintenance. It costs $1 a foot to paint a wall, just to paint a wall. So how are you going to keep up a building that you don't have kids in when you're not even being supported at the level necessary to maintain the buildings that we have kids in, right? So all of those things have to factor into our decision making, and so we try and preserve the history as best we can. But it's going back to Geringer. Geringer's on the National Historic Registry, so we can't demolish Geringer. But what that means is we have to add buildings to Geringer's campus to do the things that we want to do for students today, because there's limitations to what we can do to renovate those existing buildings. It's tough.
Thank you so much for that. I appreciate the answer. We got a question from Ms. Johnson, then Mr. Combs, and Ms. Henderson.
Oh, I remembered my second question, but before I ask it, I do want to say that as an employee of CMS, I totally agree with what you're saying. You don't want kids at West Charlotte and Myers Park and those West Mac and those schools. People can walk all through those campuses. There are so many ins and outs, and I know you're coming from a sentimental point of view, but from a safety point of view, we need to have one building with just a couple of access points, because it is dangerous out there. So one building is safe, and teachers don't want to teach anymore in buildings like that, because when your classroom opens to the outdoors and all this, it's not safe. Okay. Now my question about West Charlotte was about the swimming pool, because that was a big discussion. A lot of people did not know, including me, because I didn't hear a lot of discussion, that the pool wasn't going to be the same size pool that was in the original West Charlotte. And as a result, you know, they can't have swim meets there. I don't even think there's a diving board in this pool. They call it a pond, just a kiddie pool. That's what people are calling it. But a lot of people are upset because we had a pretty significant swim team at West Charlotte, and now that pool can't hold a swim meet, or even when the one uptown, big one, aquatic center would have swim competitions with people coming in from different cities and states. They would use West Charlotte's pool as a practice pool also. And I think that generated some funds there. So why did you downsize that swimming pool like that? We're upset.
Well, so first and foremost, I was actually working for the county when the 2017 bond happened, so I can't speak to all the decisions that were made there, but what I can speak to is the history of that pool. That pool was actually built by Mecklenburg County Park and Recreation. It was not built by CMS. And so CMS put the pool back, but that was not originally a CMS investment. CMS had only had one, but Metro has a pool for kids for therapy. Providence had a pool. And then there were some pool put back in the project over Charlotte and into Palisades, but pools are not part of our baseline for our high schools. Rocky River and Huff don't have pools. But Myers Park doesn't have a pool. Like, that's just not something we do because it's actually not a moneymaker. It's a money loser. They're expensive to operate. They're tough to maintain. You have to have somebody who's got the proper certifications to operate those sorts of things. And so we look for partnerships with a Swim Mac or Mecklenburg County or somebody who can actually operate those things to help us ease that. So it's a challenge. Like, we recognize that our schools need water, and that's why we're going to put a pool and a dive tank at the West Regional Athletic Facility that's built on the Freedom Driving Range, where we're also co-locating out. So that's part of that, is to have a strategy to get our kids access to water, but not have it be at each one of the high schools, because that's really hard to operate. It's really hard to maintain. And it's really an expense center, and so it's a real challenge.
All right, Mr. Combs.
Another historic perspective. In the redoing of West Charlotte High School, I understood, and maybe I was in error, to understand that the auditorium was the sole surviving facility on that campus, and I rolled by one day and the wrecking balls were there tearing it down. So I don't understand how or why that happened, but from an historic perspective, as it relates to West Charlotte High School, West Charlotte High School was built to keep one group in, and in 1954, right before the 1955 Separate but Equal was passed, West Charlotte became a national marquee school because of its architecture and all of the things that it offered. And as you suggested, over time, it was inefficient. And now the new West Charlotte, in my estimation, has been not to keep people in, but for the people who are coming in through gentrification. And as that goes down, and I was out just Sunday for the first time in over 20 years. I went as far as the old Riverview at the Buster Boyd Bridge, and I was amazed and saddened and maddened when I looked across and saw Palisades High School, just as I was when Ardrey Hill was built, while West Charlotte was still being allowed to sit there and go into decay. Now, Charlotte Mecklenburg really, if you look around, has no real appreciation for its history, has no real appreciation for the things that have made it great, including the square where the state's first steel skyscraper stood, and they tore it down. And now it's an open space going into the Bank of America and the Marriott Hotel, where the Mecklenburg County Declaration of Independence was signed, is open space for the NCNB Plaza across the street. The little shed or house that it was signed in was sitting there at one time between the buildings. Okay. My thing is, Charlotte Mecklenburg had no real appreciation for its history. And for the people who have come lately, they don't know anything about that history and therefore have no skin in the game. So it's much easier to pull the wool over their eyes. And I just would like to have your reaction to that kind of extensive evaluation of where we are in Charlotte Mecklenburg. And mind you, I came in '69, right before the 70.
Okay, come on, kid.
Yeah, well, I wasn't born until 1970, so. And it is, so I mean, like fair in a lot of ways, right? So I mean, Ardrey Kell and Palisades were open for growth. Like when I was in high school here, Youngblood Road was a 2-track dirt road that they put oil on in the summer to keep the dirt down, right? And that wasn't 100 years ago. So, you know, we've seen how, you know, Ardrey Kell the same way. Like, you know, we've seen areas that were farms that farmers decided they didn't feel like farming anymore. And so 10,000 houses popped up, right? We've seen that happen throughout this community. And so I don't think that there's anything that you can necessarily do, nor that we would want to do to stop that, right? Because the challenge, I think, to part of what Rick was saying was, if you're not growing, you're dying, right? So growth is a good thing from how it's managed, whether it's managed, all of those things are absolutely important, but growth in itself is not inherently bad. I think the other challenge is like going back to West Charlotte, right? So, you know, we had the same conversation about Bruns, I think. You know, when we started planning for replacement of that school, it was, you know, several years prior to it actually being on a bond. And then the bond has to pass, and then the money has to be allocated from the county. And so it looks like we're responding to something in the moment when it's actually been 10 years in the making. And so those are sort of those challenges because people don't necessarily see or know. We try our best, right? So as soon as we get through this bond referendum, however it shakes out, we're going to go back and we're going to reevaluate all of the schools that didn't get on the bond, the ones that were closest, the ones that were behind it, because things shift over time. So we got 30 projects with 35 schools right now. The 36th school might be the #1 school, and it might not because something might have happened, you know, between now and the next funding opportunity that moves something ahead of that. So we try and update those plans annually. We try and share those things with the community annually, but there's always a level of sort of surprise when we actually do share the information or when somebody does finally pay attention to there being a bond referendum and how did we get here, or people show up in the ballot box and say, oh, I didn't even know there was a school bond, or worse, they don't even show up in the ballot box, right? So, and I think this kind of ties back to the first topic, like there's this apathy right now, and I don't know what's driving it or why. Right, that's a whole other subject, but I mean, it's all tied. It's all that underpins all of this is that, you know, a lot of people either don't know, don't care, or don't care to know, and I don't know how we fix that globally.
All right, so Ms. McElrath, I want you to get your tools, so we gotta keep our questions down to 2 minutes. We started more liberally, wasn't as many people in the topics, so I guess, yeah, polarizing, so now we gotta make sure we keep our questions at least to 2 minutes. We have Ms. Henderson.
Good morning. To my point with Ms. Johnson, she spoke about safety in schools. Number one, I want to know what's going on with those lotteries that we have. It seems as though we're in a place where we're always being taxed, but we have the school, isn't the school lottery, right? Isn't it?
The North Carolina Education Lottery, we get $12 million a year from that.
Okay. And then the point that I'm trying to say is that when you're building schools or doing any type of building, is there a way to incorporate safety measures moving forward?
Absolutely. So there's a couple of different things that we do. One is something that nobody sees. So there's a thing called crime prevention through environmental design, or CPTED. And it actually speaks to how the building is oriented on the site, where the offices are, where the windows are on things, where the bushes are planted, what sort of shrubs are planted. So all of those things create an atmosphere where there are sight lines to the edges of the property, where people have vantage points. There's a reason why we build one long corridor, right? So one person can step out in the corridor, look to both ends of the hallway and see what's going on. So all of those things are baked in. We have cameras in the buildings. We have cameras on the buildings. Several hundred cameras on each one of our sites. We are doing security vestibules at each one of our schools. So when you come up, there's a door with a badge access for employees. There's a set of double doors where we're using massing, rest, egress, like pick up and drop off time. And then the rest of the time, there's a security door where you buzz, state your reason for coming in, doors open to you, and you're standing in another chamber with a transaction window like a bank. And so if all you need to do is trade a note in or pick up Sally to take her to the dentist or bring Johnny's lunch to him, you wait there and that all happens at the window. You never even come into the office. If you do need to be brought into the office, you're still in the office and there's another layer before you get into the building. And then we have a sign-in system that actually checks your background when you scan your driver's license and all those other sorts of things before you're even going to be allowed out of that office area. So there are a whole lot of things that we do for safety and security, and a lot of them aren't transparent, but a lot of that goes back to what Mary was saying about why we want single building canvases, why we want single points of entry for students at the bus lot and at the front door, and how we want to manage what goes on within the building and within the campus.
All right, we have Ms. Blanche Penn, then I have a question. I'm sorry, then Ms. Blanche, Ms. Walton, then I have a question.
Okay, Dennis, I'm gonna give you a break and I'm gonna let you rest for a second. I'm not gonna attack you right now. But I got the judge in the house. And so, Judge, I wanna know, because it's such a problem out here for our young people, okay? So with expungement, things like that, when they get in trouble, and then they get to be adults now, and then all of a sudden they can't find housing, they can't find almost nothing. And then a lot of them either come back to the parents or those kind of things, or they get back into trouble. So is there anything that the court system is doing, or people that, organizations that's out here that can help to change some of that, so that way we can get these people who are really wanting to get back into the working force to do things? Because there's so many things they cannot do, and that's not fair to me because of especially the housing and things of that nature. And then with a twist to it, I'm not sure if you can do anything about this or not, is with that housing, why do they have to charge every time you fill out an application? I don't know who gets that. No, but housing, every time you have an apartment, not a deposit.
So good morning, everyone.
Would you mind introducing yourself?
Yes. Shantae Burke here, one of the district court judges here, elected, appointed last year. So your second question, I don't know the answer to that. However, for your first question, there are a couple of different areas of the courthouse and outside of the courthouse that work on reentry and reentry housing. I know, like in juvenile court, sometimes they partner with the relatives, and the relatives help the juveniles that come through the system find housing, find employment. I'm even thinking about down in criminal court. I'm one of the lead judges for DWI Recovery Court. We too work with various different organizations to help find housing, help find jobs, get you an ID or what have you. So there are various aspects and other community partners that we work with within the court system. And it's a long list, but feel free to reach out so I can provide a list to you to help people get back on their feet. Because again, we want to reduce that recidivism rate. We don't want to see people coming back into the criminal justice system. We do want to see prevail. So yes, there are some organizations that we partner with to make sure that we can make sure that you get housing, get work, get health care, all that stuff.
Can I comment on that also? I do know that our district attorney, and they're on the prosecuting side of things, but when people come into court who have committed various crimes, I'm not talking about major murder and things like that, but a lot of crimes that instead of just giving them a sentence of jail time, they also look at those organizations to place that person somewhere where they can get help. So it's not just a punishment that they get, but they also get some help. I know my daughter was a prosecutor. Yeah, she was assistant district attorney, and they spent a lot of time working with people who committed crimes to see what is the problem and what can we do to help this person.
So that goes to what I was speaking about earlier. I'm sorry. That's okay. So that goes to exactly what I was talking about earlier. A lot of people don't know that we have a lot of recovery courts. So for instance, I'm in criminal court most of the time. One of our recovery courts is DWI Recovery Court. When they come in, they are struggling with alcohol abuse, drug abuse. We have wellness court, those who struggle with mental health battles. We have Family First that deals with juveniles. Those people who struggle with a serious addiction, instead of just imprisoning them or incarcerating them. Yes, they still get sentenced and they have that sentence hanging over their head, but what can we do as a legal system to help them get back on their feet? And that's when we accept them into the recovery court and we make sure that they are following the steps of the program. And a part of that step is make sure you take your medication. Make sure that we introduce you to a facility or a group or whatever for housing. So that's exactly what I was saying. And we have both recovery courts and district court as well as superior.
We'll get you a mic too, because it seems like you're about to be on the hot seat. We'll do all things.
You don't have to be in court today, do you?
I do.
You don't think it knows.
She texted somebody, hey, send me some paper right now. I gotta get out. Oh, thank you for finishing this minute already. Nice.
Both say I do have my shoes sitting in the car. I gotta get her to class, but that's what I'm gonna stop.
She was, they didn't be in there. No, not this girl wants to go. Oh.
Regarding that list that you're going to send to Glenn, can you also send that to Steve so it can be part of what goes out? My question has to do with here at the forum, how we handle candidates coming in. We're getting ready to go through a tough time with North Carolina now being moved up to Super Tuesday in March, which means that in December, folk will be filing for almost everything next year except city council and school. And during January and February, folk will be out here campaigning for a March primary. And we just need to look at the forum, how many people can we get in? Because what happened before was that it did interfere somewhat with our Black history and our Women's History Month. So that's just something I'd like for us to look at, because again,
To prevent bottlenecking,
Yes.
too many.
yes, filing is going to start in December.
You, Mr. Don't you would like to respond to that?
I think your point is well taken and certainly valid. But if you look at the turnout in these recent elections, what was it, less than 5%?
Yes.
22,000.
That's horrific. And if we're going to improve that by any means, then I think we as a forum have to come up with some kind of ways to make it more exciting, because there are two things that sell. And I've said before, and I tell you again, sex and controversy. And if we're just simply going to sit here and tell folks to come and let you make your statement, and we ask you a few questions, no big deal. But we're going to do a better job of getting in-depth information about some of these people, and having a reason for people to want to watch or tune in or even come and pay any attention to what we present in terms of these candidates. Because otherwise, we're going to end up just like we did the last time, and that's because we're too easy on these folks.
So I'll let Ms. Walton respond to that, then we're gonna get the chair.
not,
Oh, yeah, she talked more.
not so much to respond to it as to, just look at where we move forward. Because when forums first came out in the Tuesday morning forum, when we were doing it, we were the only ones doing it. No sororities, no Democracy in North Carolina, no churches, no Black political caucus, no NAACP. Tuesday forum was doing the camp. That was it. Now it's everywhere. And you know, I guess I'm looking at what can be done differently. And I agree with you, Ken.
All right, Shay.
This wasn't it. I think that's some great questions, Jim. I think that a vibe called voting would take care of all that.
Nothing at all.
I think a vibe called voting would take care of all that.
No, it's an event I have on the west side.
Bill,
Thanks, Shay.
I attended a webinar on voter mobilization, and what they were saying is that this is across the nation, 75% of registered voters do not vote. So the problem is not registering. The problem is getting them mobilized. They are registered. I think we do a good job of going out and signing up people, but we sign them up and they go off into the, the world, and they are not voting. So there's something that's missing there.
Let me ask you this. Again, like, is it one of those scenarios when it's better not to involve yourself if you simply don't know what you're doing? Like, it's a lot of candidates that it's hard to find information on, or even the bonds. It can be very complex to know exactly how you feel about such an issue. So I don't know if people are reluctant to participate when they just simply don't know what they're voting for.
Or lost hope.
Or lost hope. Yeah, it could be, it's not just people's refusal to participate in democracy. It's like, yeah, this is way too hard to find.
But they're leaving themselves open to whatever decision is made.
Well, how can we better?
So if you say, well, why should I vote? Well, why do you turn your water on every morning to take a shower? That's political. Everything that you do in your life, from the time you get up in the morning, it is political. Somebody made a decision in Raleigh or Washington about every single thing you do. So don't ever say that
Right,
there's no
absolutely.
reason to vote.
I know it is. But if I wanted to vote for Judge Burkhalter, what would be my grounds? How could I find enough on her to make a sound decision? Like, I'm asking that. But like, my question is, how do you invigorate people to vote by knowing how to find things that will give them the information to make a sound decision? Especially with the judges. It's tough. I don't know. I'll be transparent. When it comes to judges, I'm not making on that picture. And that's kind of, a lot of my decision because I'm trying to vote in my interest, especially with the judicial system. I don't have a lot to go on. And it can literally, being a black man, it can literally be the difference of life and death. So, but again, if
You don't research these people.
no, you do, but when you look at judges, it is tough to find. Like,
It's not research.
and I'm pretty, politically involved.
TV. The only way to get people if the news media would cover the election. If the news media would cover the elections, people would vote. People don't even know that there is an election. They have the funniest idea. If you go and just talk to the average man on the street, they're gonna say, vote for who? I don't even know you have an election. The news media doesn't cover the elections. The debates should be on TV. That's how people would come to the polls.
Accountability.
The person running for office is doing their job, run action campaign.
All right, let's get a little bit. So, no, hold on. Mr. Copley, the president.
Good morning. This question is for a judge. I know that you're in the juvenile and criminal courts. So I do a lot of work with children, youth that are about to age out of foster care and haven't been adopted. And quite a few of them want to go to college. I was one of the ones that went to college because the foster care was able to go without having to pay. So how do we get that information, or do you all share that information with the youth or teens that are college ready that come through the court system? So that they can go to court without having to do FAFSA and I had to come for the bonds.
So, thank you for the question. She did ask me this on the side, and so I told her that I make sure I get her in contact with who she needs to speak to about that. The one thing that I enjoyed about practicing in juvenile law when I was an attorney was the environment or the spirit of togetherness up there and on the 8th floor. And so we have a team of juvenile court judges, with the lead judge being Judge Aretha Blake. I'm sure many of you probably know her name. Then you have Judge Renee Little. You have Judge Rex Marble, and then you have Judge Faith Fiegling Alvarez. So those are our 4 juvenile court judges. And so I'll make sure that you have Judge Blake's number or information, because they do have more information on that than I do at this time. But she'll be able to guide you and direct you in the right path as far as who you should speak to about your kids, okay? Thank you.
All right, now we have it's oh, Chris, can you go?
Good morning. My question is, even if we do get votes up, how can we organize and hold the people that we are voting for in office accountable? Like, as a group, like, how can we organize and ask for, I guess, civic ask that's important? Because we have to get on one accord and hold the officials accountable.
Well, what accountability look like to you?
Make sure those asks are answered. If they're asking for votes and you have specific asks for them, and you're voting based on just likes or not like interest, the same interest, and they're not holding themselves, there is no accountability. It's just like we're voting, but those asks are just not being answered once they get in office.
It's really something.
Oh, wait. So, we're gonna get Mr. Combs, then we're gonna allow Ms. Dr. Penny.
No, it's key.
This was crazy.
Next week, I will bring with me, and Steve will be able to post my plan for accountability and responsibility for those who are elected. As far as those who want to be elected, TV is, that works for old people, but it doesn't work for young people. We need social media activity, because that's where younger people, and we had less than 1% of the last vote were considered young people, and that's ridiculous. Those are the ones that are going to make the difference. They're the ones on whom the future lies. And if we don't give them adequate information and send them candidates to vote for that they can identify with, we're going to be doing this thing here over and over again. And these young folks ain't playing. Better figure out how to get them involved and encouraged. And so that's my thing. We got to be more aggressive as a forum in terms of how and what.
Dr. Penny.
Okay, Dennis, you take this back. Let them know we got this card in the mail and it was terrible. So if I had to vote, I wouldn't vote. for it, number one. I don't want you to talk though. But the person I do, I mean, you can talk in a minute. But the person I do want to talk is Jasmine and Charlene Henderson. Because Jasmine, these are two strong people out here that you need to know what they're doing. And so I think that's important. Then we can come back to that bond, Dennis. Okay. Tell them what y'all do. Don't you look at me for
Choose the conversation.
You know, we talk about people not knowing. Guys, it's amazing what people do know, because when Beyonce was here, that stadium was full. So people know what they want to know. Okay, so I mean, I don't buy this that it's not out here, people don't know, because they know what they want to know. Okay.
So tell them about the conversation you're saying, Henderson and Jasmine, let them know what you're doing.
Listen, I'm out here on the streets. I really am. I truly listen and have my ear to the ground. And people will do what they want to do. But the goal is to make sure you hold them accountable, also make sure you have structure in place. Don't just let them come in and then walk back out. You make sure that you tell those elected officials that in 3 months, we're bringing you right back here and hold you accountable to what you said and hold to that, number one. Number two, I have crucial conversations, and so a lot of times when I know there are important topics and things that we need to know in our city, in our community, I go to the place where they're being held. Like right now, y'all are on my live. I think I am a brand. Well, I know I am. So Charlene Henderson, if you ever want to see anything that goes on in this city, you can go onto that page. But the goal is to put it in their face and let them see and hear what's happening to our community so that they'll know we're listening, we're watching, and we're going to hold you accountable. But we have to have people in place to make sure that we're structured and make sure they come back to the table where they started.
Oh, I want to just piggyback on her, because this is something that we talked about as facilitators. We talked about already the fact that we have politicians that come in during the forums, but they give us their political speech. So what we need to do is to bring them back, not at the same time, but just various times during the year after they get in office, to follow up on some of the things that they said that they were going to do. So that's something that we have talked about.
The voting records.
Absolutely. Start talking about that, you can get them.
Let me actually say that. Good morning, y'all. My name is Jasmine. I am a community organizer. I wear many different hats, not just in the Charlotte-Mecklenburg community, but specifically across the Southwest region. Right now, I'm working with Advanced Carolina. It's the C4 arm of, if you would say, a larger Black collective. The other arm is North Carolina Black Alliance. Ultimately, we're aiming to build Black political, education, economic power. It's like I said, I wear many different hats, but particularly with this hat, and as we're talking about this upcoming election, I think as a community organizer, one of my biggest things is training more people to be and do exactly what I'm doing, which is why I got my homie right here. He is in Cabarrus County, which is why I'm disappointed your homie's still sitting in the car, because it's places like these where we can learn, like as young folks. I remember my first Tuesday morning breakfast forum was actually about 10 years ago when I was starting my own business. But I saw and learned the power of what an organization or a facilitation like this has. And as I'm working with the Tuesday morning breakfast forum, one of the things we're talking about doing is recreating this type of forum. Brandon, Sarah Stevens, but also having a space where other counties and communities can do the same thing. And as we're talking about accountability, the same way we're showing up to these Tuesday morning breakfast forums, like you said, we get them to come back here after they get into office, but we take these young folks who can, maybe we give them, if they can't commit to come here, let's go ahead and hit the city council meeting up. If the official's not coming here, maybe we can take it a step beyond that. Let's go ahead to their office and meet them at their job, to see if they're doing their job. We big on going to Raleigh. We probably would get here in Raleigh like once or twice a month. Shoot, in January, he gonna be sleeping in front of the goddamn governor's mansion from December to January for about a month at a time. So when it comes to accountability, I think we got to show them that we're okay to show up where they are. And I think that's when we fail to realize how the civil rights movement got started in the first place, so much of young people. And I think we fail to realize that the power that we have. I think when I can encourage and lift more young people up to do this, I think that's when we'll start to, I ain't gonna say see the change, because it definitely can happen. Like it will, we see what can happen when it does happen. And when it comes down to putting you where they at, social media may be where it, maybe because I don't know why the teacher spans are really, really shorter now, so they need that 30 seconds to maybe we need that little dance to show them the elections are on the way. It's one Sunday voting here in Mecklenburg. What's up with these pastors leading their souls to the close this upcoming, because it is this upcoming Sunday. So it's like, I think taking this message to where people are, because we are the Bible Belt. Let's get the church folks out. I'm at Smith. I'm probably about to go back to Smith. As soon as I leave here, I've been doing like little, I guess, class, like information sessions or class hops, where I'm talking to students who, you know, I'm not gonna say they aren't aware, because that's one of the things I am learning. They are aware, and I think when I'm helping to give them the information to go out there, it's making it easier for them. But yeah, just going to where folks are, meeting them where they at, and then, like you said, just taking them. Like if we got cars, we got gas cars. Let's go ahead and just bring them out there.
Thank you so much, Jasmine. Who got,
Can you say something about the bonds and those little things they set up?
you'll cover that while it's on the same feed. Yes.
It's out.
And I'm gonna be very quick. So I totally agree with you. In fact, you took it out of my head when the first question that was asked was, how can we get more people to come here? And I thought of, why can't people have people shadow you so that they can see what you're doing, so that they'll know when you're done doing what you're doing, they can take over the reins. And I say that because I am a young person. I am in my 30s. I'm in my early 30s, and I serve as district court judge. But that's because I had someone see something in me, instill that in me, so that when she is gone, I can take over. And so while the other she may be in the car, you see me with my mini sheet that follows me around all the time. So I totally agree. And the courthouse is open, y'all. Y'all can come sit in a court session anytime. Now, juvenile court, you may not be able to do. But, no, seriously, though, you can come and watch and observe court at any time, so you can see who your judges are and know how they conduct themselves.
We have about 10 more minutes, okay? So I'm gonna ask you.
Tell Civic it's about to go to court. What's the last thing you gotta do? Okay, go to court.
So we have to wrap this up. Okay, so we still have, a good 10 minutes. So just make sure that what you're gonna say is brief. I know that, everybody wants to say a lot, but please be as brief as possible.
I'll be real brief. So CMS didn't create any of those materials. We're not allowed to use school district resources to advocate. So the Charlotte Regional Business Alliance hired firms to do the advocacy piece. You saw some of those folks when we came up. So I didn't have any input on that. I didn't see it before it went out. I think we have a little bit of a problem with our advocacy group, but which is why we're out here doing this work and trying to do the info sessions. That's why last night at Geringer was my 60th info session this month. So yeah, so we were trying to get the word out and correct the record as much as possible, but I can't say, I can beg you to vote. I can't ask you, I can't tell you how to vote. So
let me ask you this then. What is the role of the CELC with school? Is that not a marketing arm, or can you utilize those services to?
Yeah, so
CELC,
that's it, fine. It's the Charlotte Executive Leadership Council, and so it's made up of the CEOs of the Fortune 100 companies that are headquartered here, right? And so, they are providing support. They're pushing information into their organizations. They've provided funding for the advocacy campaign, but they're a separate and unique sort of animal. Brian Moynihan, Bank of America is Brian Moynihan. He's going to do what he wants to do, and they're supportive, but they're not CMS employees. They're not as well versed in these things. That's where trying to get the technical information out and give people the why and the understanding of how something's a project, how we got here, all those sorts of things. those are the stuff that we're trying to do to make sure everybody is as informed as possible when they go to the ballot box. And then we let other people tell folks how to vote.
Thank you. Shay?
Just real brief, the military is a lot of thought fresh brings out people to get information, be entertaining. They do it every year. What Jasmine is saying, just about being out in the community and being empowered, but I think that the community can have more advocacy and consistent action around voting, like in a voting campaign to get people to register should stop, right? The candidates to come here and say what they're gonna do to get votes shouldn't be the end of that conversation. They should be in the community as well. The meetings that you're taking place to should be every month. And if you can't be there, there should be the encouragement that people that represent your community find a way to get there, and that they have the awareness that they're having it. So the apathy in the community is sort of overridden by the excitement of being informed and having the opportunity to influence these decisions. That's really spelled out in demonstrated folks.
Okay.
Well, that's a good point, because as we have different functions in the community that have nothing to do with politics, it could be a party or something. Have some people there from who are elected officials to talk.
Oh, they
You know what I mean?
everybody.
I know you do, but I'm just saying there are a lot of things that go on in the community. Okay?
All right, we have a thought from Jasmine. We have a thought from Jasmine, Mrs. Walton, Mr. Coates, and then we're gonna close it out with Chris.
I'm gonna say this, I have 1 minute to say what you have to say. Okay?
I just wanted to say that we were able to change a DA. Not necessarily change, but get rid of a DA by literally sitting in front of a courthouse every Friday and doing a petition signature. That DA got so tireless talking to people. They changed dates of DMV courts and all of that. Not only did we register or sign up like over 1,000 folks, and the DA got gone, he was able to help get a man who was wrongfully convicted for 44 years out of jail. So I just want to touch on what holding somebody accountable can do.
Okay, that was very good. You did yours right. Who's next? Okay.
I want to say that, we do the registration piece, yes. What we lack is the voter education piece. Ella Talley, who was the mother-in-law to Lawana's, I can't get slack, Bayfield. But anyway, both task force, they did the education piece years ago. And it worked, even setting up precincts on day of. But that's the piece that's lacking. Without the education, there's not going to be a get out.
All right, let's go.
Okay, so I'm just curious. Shirley, how many people are watching your feed?
Also, if you're gonna do a feed, and we would like to know, I see you doing that, but I didn't know what you were doing, and I may have a problem with that. So I'm just saying that, it just announce that you're gonna be doing that, okay?
Chris.
And if they're watching that, they're not gonna come here.
Chris.
Do we know why young people or people in general are not voting? Like, has that even been asked? From what I hear, said it doesn't matter, but like, from younger people, why are they not voting?
A lot of I have heard say they don't vote because when their parents. There you go. When I've asked the youth why they don't vote, a lot of them say, well, my mom, we don't vote. That's something that we just don't do. So I think too, it's not just not knowing the education or the importance of voting, but it's almost like a generational thing or habit, if you will, for lack of better words. They don't see their parents going to the voting polls, so therefore they don't go to. At least that's been when I'm working with my youth, that's what they say.
There are some organizations that are in the high schools too, that go into the high schools that work with high school students. And that's real good.
Also, while I'm sure it's not a monolithic answer, what is being taught in civics? Like, where are kids supposed to become engaged? Same thing like financial literacy. It's just certain things we don't discuss in our system that would, set precedent.
It's intentional.
So what happens when you get 20,000 people?
We only have like 3 more minutes.
All right, talk.
And so one more thing, maybe it was 2 or 3 before the beloved Miss Stevenson transition, we were talking about the bonds. And so I left here and I stayed near the Trinity Park area, and I went to various homes and I asked them about the bond. And they know nothing of the bond. There's no signage out in the front. And so I guess my question to you all is, as candidates go out and canvass, do you all or can you all go out and canvass and educate on bonds? Because a lot of the bonds affect those areas.
Yeah, and again, that's our biggest challenge, right? Is that with anything that the state supplies us with, we can't do advocacy work. So I can't I can't be on paid time and do advocacy work. In fact, when I work the polls on election day, I have to take vacation day. I can't even be on the clock if I'm doing anything like that. So we are trying to get in as many rooms as we can to provide the information piece, because we don't think our advocacy group is doing their job, quite frankly. And I hate to be that blunt, but I don't know any other way to address that. And so part of this is making sure we're in every group we can be, showing up anywhere we get asked. So if there's an HOA, if there's a neighborhood association, if there are 5 people standing around in a parking lot and they want to talk about the bonds, call me and I will be there. We're trying to make sure people know, and also to the extent that we do have informed and engaged folks like the people that come here, that you can also respond to questions when you're asked and provide information. So trying to put people to be ambassadors for our kids, right? At the end of the day, this is about our kids and what they deserve and what they need. So we need all the help we can get.
Before we close it out, let me ask one more super technical question. How are bonds responding to, I guess, what would be contingency? Construction costs, probably when this bond was developed to compared to now, have probably increased by 30 or 40%.
Yeah, so actually inflation in the construction industry is coming down from when the county did the county did the estimated escalation, and they did that in March when construction cost inflation was running about 15%. Now it's down around 3, 4, 5%, depending on what the material is. But if we could magically get a check today and build everything tomorrow, it would only cost $1.9 billion. So $600 million of that $2.5 billion is construction inflation and contingency. So that's what the county estimated it would actually cost over the life of the time that they're going to allocate the funds to us to do these projects. So that's actually baked into the $2.5 billion. It's not sadly $2.5 billion for the schools plus inflation. It's $1.9 billion for the schools plus $600 million for inflation.
Okay, thank you. Judge, come on, introduce, say something before you go. Recognize our elected officials.
Once again, good morning again, but thank you for just having an open discussion about topics that matter most to everyone. Bonds are important right now. Holding people accountable is always important. My name is Shantae Burkhair. I do serve as one of your district court judges here in Mecklenburg County. I am primarily in criminal court, as well as your lead DWI recovery court. It's always an honor to be here. I was telling them earlier that I try my hardest to get here, but sometimes it's a hassle. So I was lucky to be here today, and I will be more than welcome to come back. So just let me know, and I can come talk anytime. And I will bring a host of people so you can ask them questions as well, okay? Thank you.